Hey, this is the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Michael Bruntz, joined over there by Brian Christopherson on a Wednesday as fall camp continues to roll on. Almost 2 weeks left until the season opener in Kansas City against Cincinnati. Brian, how's it going? And fall camp is just, we're just zooming right through it.
We are. We had a little bit of practice access yesterday, and it might have just been my mind, like knowing the calendar and dealing with that. But when we were over there, I felt it a little bit. Like it's you better have your house in order time.
Yeah.
That's we're kind of getting to that point. So that's awesome because we spend 8 months finding a way to get to this point, and now we're here.
Here we are.
We crawled through all the crap. And now it's raining on us. Like, is it Tim Robbins? Is that who the actor is?
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting your house in order, before we get going at Husker247, get your house in order with us. We've got a 50% off deal for your first year at Husker247. After your promotional period is over, you get a complimentary Paramount Plus subscription with your subscription to Husker247. Great time with the recent UFC news. If that's your bag, you get to watch it significantly cheaper at Paramount Plus and Husker247. So hop on board of that limited time deal before the season starts to lock in your Huskers coverage. With that out of the way, let's talk some special teams. We did have open access yesterday a little bit, just ever so much. But we heard we get this day every fall camp and once in the spring where you just kind of roll through all of the specialists. Mike Ekeler's kind of now appointment press conference viewing. I think that's probably fair to say. Let's start here. Big picture, how much better can Nebraska's special teams legitimately be in 2025? And I'm not using any of I don't think I'm using any of Mike Ekeler's
Trying, hoping. WTH.
Yeah, we're not doing any of those, but how good can they, or how improved can they be this year in your opinion?
I think they can be 2 wins better for this team improved. I mean, I really do. Like, and you think about games where maybe they lost it because of special teams or it played a big factor in it. Like Illinois is a good example. Where if the snap is good and the kick is good at the end, you maybe win that game. Iowa's another one, obviously. But I also
annually that way.
Yeah, but I also think the Pinstripe Bowl and games like that where it should have been a 2 touchdown win, and instead you're having to close it out with a 4-minute drive. And I like the fact that Ekeler, there's a little bit of a Tim Miles, don't put that crap on me way that I think is useful to that whole operation. It's like he said, I don't know about no curse. All I know is about hitting walk-off field goals. That's sort of like you need a little of that bravado to like enter the building where a bunch of guys, if they were on it last year, who have heard like, you guys suck at this, they get this shot in the arm suddenly of like, no, actually, we're going to have more punt return attempts than anybody in the country. That's our plan. We're going to average 10 yards a pop on those returns. That's our plan. We're going to pin people deep, and that's the way we're going to go about it. And obviously, he acknowledged along the way, and I think this is important to note, there's going to be bumps in the road. Not every punt from your true freshman is going to go 55 yards and all that. But he said, we're not going to ride the waves. And by the end of it, it's going to look good in its totality. It's going to be a nice result. And I just think the fact that he also said, if there's a mistake, put it on me. Say X stinks. Write that. I think that's good for his guys too. It's sort of a freedom, but also a desire. Like, I don't want to let that guy down. Like he is kind of that type of personality where like, man, it would really suck to let that guy down. I mean, I felt a little bad because I used the words filler in a question where I said lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking straight eye contact with me. He's like, we don't talk about lead by example. That's a term society made up. Well, now you can debate that or whatever, but Point is, I think he's got that way about him where when he's talking to you, you're like, I really want to make this thing hum because this guy's got this energy and he expects to succeed. So why shouldn't I?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if there was any, I mean, there's aspects of Nebraska's roster that could use a little bravado. I agree. Special teams, though, I mean, it has felt, and rightfully so at times. I mean, and not just the last couple of years, has felt like a beaten down part of the game that has cost Nebraska wins. I mean, let's not dance around that. But it's the thing that got my attention was just the idea of like we one of our goals is to lead in punts returned, not just like yards. But that's such a tone setter of like we're when we have the opportunity, you're going to make a play or try to make a play, do something that affects the game in a positive way. And it's not, to me, that's not playing on your heels. That's aggression. It's trying to make that something positive rather than just hoping and wishing that something doesn't go wrong. So I was just going through the stats as you were talking, and where Nebraska finished in terms of actual punt returns last year. Just in the Big Ten alone, they were tied for 11th with Michigan with 15 returned punts. Of those 15 returned punts, they returned it for 73 yards, which back of the envelope math is 4.9 yards per return, which is DFL in if we're doing acronyms, I guess, in the Big Ten for yards per return. So even if they got to 10, that would be somewhere in like the 7, 6, 7 type range. So that kind of gives you an idea of what those numbers would actually mean. But just looking here in teams that return the most punts, it was Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio State that returned 28, 27, 27, and 24. So there's some improvement to be made there, but I like that Nebraska is finally saying, like, I mean, really for the first time it feels like since 2014, we're gonna make a go of this thing here and not fair catch it when you've got 10 yards of grass in front of you.
Yeah, and he was very comprehensive within that press conference because he acknowledged too that not every game is created equally for special teams. Like there's certain games where you're just not going to get a pitch to hit sort of deal. And you can't like always just force the issue. But the tone is going to be mostly aggressive. It's obvious. Made me cross out. I do wonder still about waving your hand sometimes on kick returns and just taking the ball to 25. And the only reason I quietly now make kind of an argument for it is not only has Nebraska struggled with it, and I know it's a new era, but across football, it feels like it's a play where you get a penalty on yourself like half the time, and it moves the ball back to like the 12-yard line. So that's the only. I do think you could have a discussion about sometimes whether it's worth doing that, but I don't know if there's any plans on that. We haven't really got to that. That would have been the sort of question I'd like to ask if it were like the old days and we were like a circle off to the side around, and it's not the big production it is now with every answer and question like put under the microscope.
What'd you make of, I mean, obviously Archie Wilson's kind of dominated the conversation the last week. Very eager to see what that looks like under the lights. What did you make of the kicking conversation? Because it was kind of a small, very small portion of what was talked about yesterday.
Yeah, it was. He said next week the decision's coming. We'll roll with that. Kyle Cunanan, maybe you read into this, maybe not. Maybe it's just because he's a new guy, but he did come in as one of the guys who did interviews. And we saw them in the open practice. They hit 8 of 8. And he hit 4, I think. Hole hit 3. Alvano hit 1. Again, maybe don't read too much into that. I don't know what the layout has been otherwise. But every time we've seen or heard about kicks, they've made them. And so that's promising. And it seems like the operation has been good. If you said make your prediction, sort of an educated guess at who it's going to be, I would say Cunanan right now, but we'll see. Then the good thing is you've got some options, but he said snapping is getting there. It's got, there's a little room for improvement with that. So, I liked his 33, 33, 34 description where, it's 34% of it's kicking, but the other 66% of the operation have to handle their business to get you to that 34. So that's something obviously last year that I think hurt Nebraska as much as anything. So if that's in order, these kickers are going to look a lot better just off of that alone. And it sounds like Camden Cook's a pretty good holder too, something we kind of overlook, but he's the guy who's going to do that job, and they've liked what they've seen.
So that's the rundown on special teams. I mean, it's tough too, because we can talk about it now, but you really don't know how it's going to actually look until guys are having to catch punts in traffic or make a key field goal. But at least I think the takeaway from yesterday is it feels like the right tone is being set, and a necessary one for Mike Ekeler over there as we get through fall camp. We also we mentioned there was open access yesterday for about 20, 25 minutes. Let's talk about a couple position groups. We've talked about this one a lot, but running back continues to be. I think there's a little bit more clarity coming to that group. It feels like there's maybe a little bit of a separation for who's where. But what were your kind of? I noticed you were over there a little bit. What did you kind of take away from the running backs yesterday as they kind of sort things out with finding 3 or 4 guys that can help them?
Well, I guess my main takeaway was Dana Holgerson, and you noted this as well, was like right over there watching those guys in coach's stance, down, hands on knees sort of deal, as they work on their pass pro against guys like Vincent Shavers, who are trying to come 100 miles an hour at them and either bull rush them or maneuver past them. And I thought honestly, those guys who are younger, I thought they held up pretty well. It was kind of a give and take. They lost a few badly and they won a few really well. Mekhi Nelson, I think, has quietly bulked up. Like, I heard he was like around 200. And that's like, I wouldn't have guessed that looking at him. But like when he first got here, I saw him as more of like a slender guy. And I think he's done a lot of work on his body behind the scenes with the help of Corey Campbell and Kristen in nutrition. And so that's notable. I think he's probably your second guy right now. I think Quinton Ives picked an unfortunate time. I don't know how it would have played out anyway, but to be in a yellow jersey, and he still is. And then Mosey, I think he's pretty much a natural there, Holgerson thinks, and he's got all the things. Like, we have a clip of him, one hand and a catch that's behind him and all this stuff. He's just got a way about him where he's pretty smooth, even when stuff isn't exactly as you draw it up, which is a nice trait to have in a young player.
If you had to point to like an X factor in that room, who is it?
I want to be careful to not like overlook the fact that it's still like Emmett Johnson just like being like another level up and just being that like home run hitter and the guy who takes a few that were like 10, 15 yarders last year and makes them 50, 55 yarders. So I'd start there, but I know everybody's having the conversation about what after Emmett. And I think it's Mekhi Nelson, just because you hear the coaches talk about him and players for that matter. He's explosive and when he gets some space. And so I think it's just been about all the other parts coming together. And my sense is that started to happen, because if you listen to the lines, like Holgerson, it sounded like had some real truth talks with him after the spring, or there were some things where maybe there was a concern about this or that had to get in order. And he seems like a guy over the summer and into this camp that has, and we started with put your house in order. It seems like he's done that as a player and everything that it entails. And that's given him the chance to be talked about like he is now. So he's probably the X factor behind Emmett just being going from a good back to a great back.
Yeah, you could have taken that a couple different ways. I mean, I think your point about Emmett being the guy that you hoped he would be or can be, like that to me is the biggest thing. Like, is he
Yep.
going to be a guy that can carry the ball 20 times a game or 15 times a game, catch it out of the backfield as well? Like, it feels like to me that early on, especially, he's it feels like in the opener that's like an Emmett Johnson game, and then you kind of get contributions here and there to kind of get through it a little bit. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it just I think you're going to have to lean on him early until those other guys kind of get up to speed and know a little seasoned.
That's interesting. That's a good way to bring it up. I don't know that a coach would say that out loud, but I think you're right. Like, that's a tough game against a power conference team right off the bat. You're going to need your vets to be vets that night. And then you've got a couple of weeks to kind of work in some of the other guys. I'm not saying the other guys won't play, but I'm saying like that's a night where maybe Emmett does get the ball 25 times, through catching and running. That's a point no one stressed much, but I think it's a big one.
Other groups that I guess position battles kind of ongoing. I thought Matt Rule's comments on Saturday about the offensive tackle spot, were at least noteworthy. That there's at least a consideration that, let's say your best two tackles are on the same side, that you potentially flip one over if need be. Handicap that one a little bit for us also with the fact that Turner Corcoran was out of the yellow, green. I mean, he feels like he's worn all kinds of jersey colors over the last 6 to 9 months, but his entry into that, how do you see that shaking out? And I guess where do things kind of stand now? Because it feels like that one is a little bit more unsettled than maybe what I felt it was a week ago. I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, maybe. I feel like left tackle is clearing up to me a little bit, maybe, with Pritchett. I think Pritchett's made good strides throughout the camp that they wanted to get out of him. That's just what I'm picking up on. Maybe I'm missing it, but I feel like there was sort of that challenge to him off the bat where like Gatula actually got out there first, and it kind of got documented at left tackle. And we didn't make too much of a big a deal out of that because we knew it was going to play out. I feel like Pritchett has had a nice camp, so I think he's going to be your left tackle. But you're right. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go. At some point, Gatula, and I don't know how much he's working at right, like in the stuff we don't see. Like we've seen him at left tackle a lot, but obviously he needs to have reps there. So you'd assume he's getting them if could be in the mix for that. But if he's the second guy, as Rule said, at tackle, he could play right tackle. If I had to guess, this is my prediction 15 days out. I'll say Pritchett at left, Prohaska at right, but I would not bet anything of value on it. That's how I feel about it.
You get a little choked about it.
I do. I get emotional because it's like you want that tackle spot to be so good.
Yeah.
And it just like sometimes your speech sort of slows down and you get emotional.
No, I get it. It's tough stuff. We saw a little bit of the Belichick drill yesterday. I feel like we've seen a lot of the Belichick drill this fall camp. Basically, you get an offensive lineman going against a defensive lineman, a defensive back or linebacker running in to try to make a tackle on a running back. Some interesting battles. Let's flip over to the defensive line. A guy who continues to stand out that maybe we're not talking enough about is Keona Davis. Like that to me looks like a Big Ten defensive end if Nebraska's got one. I mean that's the look of the guy that you want in there. He had a couple battles with Pritchett that were pretty back and forth. But have your thoughts changed at all on the defensive line over the first 60% of the way through fall camp?
Not really. I'm just curious more than anything. It's not like I have, even in the spring, it wasn't like I doubted that they can be good. I just wonder because they are younger. Phil Snow said as much. He's like, we're really young on the D line. Like, I mean, those guys know it's true. So you're always like curious, like how are those guys going to respond? I understand Rule's point too. Like they might not have to have like Ty Nash type reps, but still those guys are going to have to like double their reps at least from what they've been. So that's the question really. It's can you be the type of player when you were early in your career that maybe was getting 10 to 15 reps on a given week and give the same type of level of snap on your 35th rep in a game as you're going into the fourth quarter as your 12th like the year before. And that's what you have to answer now. And so that's the part I wonder about. And they very well could be fine with it. That's how football is supposed to work. We need to get I always use the Friday Night Lights movie example. It's at the end of the movie. Billy Bob's putting down the names and he's putting up new names, and that you expect guys to step up and you're on scholarship, produce. And so they have their chance now. I think Cam Lenhart has had a good camp from everything I've heard. He's probably a guy, honestly, some of us are sleeping on because he kind of last year, it just sort of, he was just kind of there, like you didn't feel it as much as you perhaps thought you were after his freshman year when he caused some chaos in Boulder and had a couple sacks. And it didn't happen as much last season. And so I think because of that, people have kind of been slow to jump on that bandwagon, but I've heard he's had a really good August. So that's promising.
You think they've got 6 up front right now that they feel comfortable with?
I don't know if they have 6, like, as we would call them, natural D linemen, but I think they feel good about, like, how they can mix and match with those jacks. Mm-hmm. And so they, like, when I asked Rule about it, like, after the core 4, we always talk about, people know who they are, like, who's sort of coming up. And he gave some names, but he very quickly in that answer mentioned the jacks, like, right at the front of it. He's like, well, we could play 2 out there at certain times. And Ochoa's come on. He's definitely right there, I think, now with McCullough and McGahee. And so I think they're going to need all 3 of those guys to be really valuable. And so when you put them together, and if Williams Nwaneri is solid and is just building toward what he can be this year, that's big, like right there. If he's like a 5th guy that's just good and you're seeing like what can be even. And then you just need another guy. I don't know if it's like a Dylan Parrott or David Hofkin has actually had a good offseason, it sounds like. And so some of those guys we might see out there at Arrowhead for a few snaps.
As we sit here on August 13th, give me your 2 position groups that you are most confident in going into the season as of right now. This is a ripped off question, by the way.
No,
but
that's a good question. Most confident.
Don't feel like you have to surprise me either, although I would
I don't know if the jacks counts as its own position, because I almost like we just answered that how it's like kind of mixed in with the D line, so they might not be able to separate. I think the jacks room, those 3 that we name, can be really good, like the combination of them. So that could be one answer. I would say wide receiver. I'm buying it. I think Dane Key's been really good for that room. I like yesterday how Key got up and said he didn't have a good practice, and the younger guys were telling him you're not being who you said you're going to be. And he's willing to say that out loud and like take that constructive criticism. I think Quinn Clark, Keelan Smith are guys to watch out for beyond the ones we always talk. And I think Cortez Mills is probably in the top 4, along with the big 3 we always mentioned. So they actually have 6 or 7 guys. Bonner always gets talked over, but he's a great utility knife, to have in your pocket. So I'd say receiver. Do you think I think DBs. I just think they've got the experience combined with young guys pushing the pile, so to speak, like putting the pressure on, that it can't help but be pretty good. Like it should be the strength of the defense. And frankly, if it's not, they're in trouble.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, especially given the amount of experience back. And you're right. Like, I don't know that the guys that are going to be your starters in week 1 are going to be like, it feels like the divvying up of playing time could look different by the time we get to like Minnesota or like the middle of October. Like, I think that's possible.
I definitely think that.
Where's offensive line fall in that pecking order for you? That was one. When I answered it, I said linebackers, and I rolled the Jackson with them, so I cheated. But
Yeah.
offensive line was my other one.
No, offensive line's a good pick. I was overthinking it. And again, they're kind of like the DBs on the other side of the ball. It's just like be the group that you're sort of expected to be on paper. Like it looks good. For the first time in a long time, I feel like the gap between the 5th and 6th guy isn't there really. And that's been a problem for a while. And I think they've kind of fixed that. That's why we're having the conversations about who the tackles are. That interior needs to be top level. I mean, it should be. You've got Latovsky, Evans, and who, Holgerson thinks the world of what Evans can be as a center. I know some of that's you're pumping confidence into him, but I think he wouldn't say it if he didn't think he could actually reach it. And then Spindler, obviously an experienced guy. And right away, Bruntz, we're going to see what they're made of. Because since he has the Godfather, that Corleone,
Dante,
yeah, who is a 3-time all big conference player, and you don't want him to put a horse head in your bed the first night. You got to show him that you can handle him. So that's going to be a big test.
You don't want him to make Nebraska an offer they can't refuse.
Exactly.
So I was thinking about this the other day. He's listed at 6'1", 335. Justin Evans probably listed generously at 6'1". Like it's going to be like the ultimate battle of leverage right out of the gates.
Low man wins every time.
He wins. Jeez. Yeah, it's offensive line. I when I was asked that question, it's been a long time since you've probably been able to say that. And I think your comparison to kind of the way it is on in the secondary with their group of guys is spot on, because you've got the guys, the veterans that have been through it and have been around, and then you have that next group of twos that it feels like over the last couple of years that gap between the two has really narrowed, and there's at least some pushing going there. So I don't know, like in some ways the secondary needs to be the strength of the defense just based on how they look on paper. Offensive line kind of the same way. Like that group can't kind of come out and just kind of have a so-so year, given the way that it feels like things have kind of built to 2025 and the group that they have back.
Deshaun Singleton with the DBs at Big Ten Media Days, he said ball discipline or ball production. I got it wrong. Ball production, 2 words, ball production. It's like The Graduate, where it's 1 word, plastics. That's what they've got to be, though. Like that's John Butler. He said challenges them every day. It's like ball production. Like that's got to be a group that are just thieves back there. They make some plays. It's not just knocking it away. It's not just getting the yards per attempt down, although they got to do that from last year because they weren't actually that great in it statistically. But this has to be a team. Nebraska's got to make that move to be elite where they take the ball away 23 times during the season and not 16 or 17. They've got to get like those 6 or 7 extra takeaways. And they've got the guys with experience. Hartzog, I know sometimes gets picked on by fans, but he's a guy who's had a lot of turnovers. I could see him being active there. And you hope like Sierra and Andrew Marshall, they all get theirs. And it almost becomes like this competition within the room, like who's going to get more sort of deal. And they off that. Like, that's what I'd love to see the first week, Bruntz, is that's like a storyline where they take it away like 3 or 4 times and we start to settle into maybe this defense is like that. That would be an awesome thing.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've been able to sustain that because it feels like you kind of do it against the teams you expect that you would do it against. But when you start getting into conference play or you're playing Power 4 teams, the takeaways just like that big kind of game-changing takeaway doesn't seem to happen very often. So, and I think Nebraska finally has an offense that'll be able to cash in on that too, which I think has been part of the issue is when they have gotten turnovers, it hasn't led to much. So that'll be a big one. Anything else before we wrap up here? We've got more availability Friday and Saturday this week. And then, I mean, basically the last big scrimmage is Saturday. And like you said, I mean, it feels like you're almost kind of into the season by that point because you start game prep. You're under 2 weeks out from the season. So it's going to get here fast.
This is if there's people, this is what my final thought. I understand if this offseason just sucked for you, like as a fan of like what college sports is, some of the headlines and stuff. But right now is the time to like turn up the volume, I think, because I really believe it's one of the more fascinating Husker seasons we're entering. Like you can go through each position group and find an abundance of storylines that are intriguing. And it's just this pivotal moment. Like Rule's been good at building these programs. I know the year 3 thing is talked to death, but it's a real thing. So you're wondering if that's going to really take hold. And then there's just that Raiola factor. Like, can he be that guy? Like, the guy who puts you over the top. And honestly, Bruntz, if there's one thing this offseason that's been kind of surprising, he gets talked over nationally a lot, honestly. Like, he wasn't even on who cares really, but he wasn't on the Davey O'Brien watch list. And they put everybody on the watch list. And so I'm not saying he puts the watch list up on his mirror like Rocky before fighting Drago, but he's got to have some fuel, if probably knowing like who they've said is like in the first tier, and you're actually Riles the 4th tier and all this stuff. Like I've got to think hasn't missed some of that.
He's got like 3 pages of quarterbacks listed, jammed up under the mirror because he got so many guys on that watch list.
Yeah, or it's like the Tom Brady factor where he remembers like every 18 QBs drafted ahead of him or whatever, like that sort of thing. I don't know if he's like that, but that is an interesting like thing I've wondered about, like how much he's noted that actually people are outside of our bubble are a little skeptical, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's interesting too because this has felt like the first year where there's kind of been a little bit like, I think, legitimate juice, like 2019. I mean, Nebraska started that season ranked. I think that was a little bit of more so like how much higher can AJ Martinez go?
Yep.
But it does seem like nationally, at least, Nebraska is either being talked over or there's a little, I think there's a little bit of comfortable skepticism about what they can be.
It's fair based off the past. But it's probably good for Nebraska that it's been that way. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, if you've been like, man, I'm down on all this stuff that's happening, I don't know. It's about to get pretty interesting because when the football shows up, it sort of makes people forget how they were grumbling about this or that story or headline in May and June. You get past it pretty fast.
So main takeaway today, Davey O'Brien is Dylan Raiola's LeBradford Smith. That's what we learned here today.
He probably doesn't even know about the watch list, but but we had a text exchange about it. They put everybody on those things. It's like, really?
Yeah. Well, they can always add him. Then that's a big,
he can still be in it.
The mid-season edition. So we'll have plenty of coverage on the site on all week, but certainly Friday and Saturday as Nebraska has its second and final big scrimmage of fall camp. So keep it locked on Husker247 for all of that coverage. Like I said earlier, 50% off your first year at Husker247. Great time to hop aboard before the season begins. For Brian Christopherson, I'm Michael Bruntz, and we'll be back with more Husker247 podcasts.